Welcome everybody to Soar and Pair, Why Not Together? Look who's here.
Hey, I'm back.
Look who's back. So, I want to remind you that Soar and Pair is soaring together to explore new adventures while inspiring others to create their own. And we are going to do a full episode today. In fact, today will be our last episode of the year.
Yes.
But before I get to that, many folks watched my brief update about you having surgery.
Yeah.
You're looking a whole lot better, almost normal.
Almost.
I don't know what normal is.
Yeah, I'm still kind of there for a while. It was really swollen. Really swollen. I looked like a cross between Alfred Hitchcock and a Lorax.
I speak for the trees.
It was pretty funny. My face changed every day. But it was pretty intense. And the doctor said I did real well, you know, getting through surgery. And now we're waiting. We did a biopsy of bone and tissue. And so we're waiting to get the results of the biopsy, hopefully this week. I follow up with the doctor on the 28th. I'm hoping they don't make me wait that long. But regardless, I'm sure it's going to come back benign. And I refuse to believe anything else.
Yeah,
so
you've done really well. She's done excellent with the recovery. You know, they don't give you very strong pain pills or very many.
No.
And kudos to you. I think, you know, she's had to sleep up at an angle.
Sleeping like a horse. Standing up, sitting up.
Sleeping like a horse.
They sleep standing up.
Just didn't come to my mind. But no, I think you've done really well. It has, I mean, she's downplaying it, but it was a really rough, you know, it's been 10, 11 days. But thank you for all the prayers, all the well wishes.
Thank you so much. It meant the world to me. And this guy, the energy work and just the care, he took really good care of me. So I've got a pretty good partner here.
Yeah, well, we are a soaring pair.
Yes.
So I'm glad yeah, your smile is looking pretty.
Is it equal now?
It's almost equal.
Almost. It still feels weird when I smile. It feels like I got something in my cheek there, but
yeah. Well, you know, we got through it, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah. We're just waiting to see, you know, if I'll need another surgery or not. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For now, I'm just grateful to be where I am and to be able to pull some of the tools out of my tool belt, you know, that I have for, you know, working on myself as well as Jim working on me and, you know, taking the medication. I'm doing a little bit of everything. And so this is a really good opportunity for me to practice those things that I do for other people with myself. So it's good.
What is the saying? Physician, heal thyself. So,
walk the talk. Yeah.
Right. So it's, I mean, it's always easier when you're talking to someone else. Oh, you'll get through it, feel better,
right.
and then it happens to you, and you're like,
oh crap. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And I was actually saying that the other day is, you know, I think this is good for me with my patients, with my clients, because it's a good reminder to be empathetic for people who are going through something. And I think until you've gone through it yourself, you really can't understand it on the same level. And so it's a good reminder that we all need to be patient and understanding with each other.
Exactly. And I'm just grateful that you're doing better and coming through it stronger, that you felt well enough today to do our podcast YouTube channel.
Yeah, me too.
For me, just a music update. You know, this year's been very slow with any kind of live performances. So I had an opportunity today to go down to Casa Grande and actually perform live in 2 services at the Presbyterian Church. A couple Christmas pieces. They really are not having singing, so I'm playing them. And I had in mind to do 2 different ones. And on my way down there, I was listening to an old throwback, the Top 40 Casey Kasem, counting back 1978. And I heard this awesome story I thought I would share real quick.
Okay.
It's about the Christmas spirit, and it influenced me. And it took place in a war about 100 years ago between the French and the German soldiers that were fighting, you know, shooting guns and cannons at each other in no man's land on a Christmas Eve 100 years ago. And the only thing lighting up the night sky was the, you know, the flash of the cannons and the guns. And all of a sudden, a soldier from the French side stood up on the no man's land where he could have got shot and started singing a Christmas song in French, and all the gunfire stopped on both sides. And then after that, a German soldier on the other side stood up in no man's land and sang the same Christmas carol in German. And for at least a time, the war ceased, the spirit of Christmas came down, and, you know...
That's beautiful.
And so we're laughing. My point, as I get to this dramatic moment to share this beautiful story.
I'm sorry, my mind, I'm just...
It could be that she's still on medication, I'm not sure.
I'm just picturing somebody standing up singing and getting shot. It would be horrible.
So that did not happen, at least according to this story.
Anyway.
And this beautiful story, thank goodness my wife did not go with me down to perform this song, because I told it in church. It was the carol, O Holy Night. And so I actually decided to perform that and share that story in both services without my wife laughing at the most inopportune moment. See, she did it to herself. She drank a cup of coffee.
Excuse me.
So the point of this beautiful story was, you know, that Sandy can find laughter in anything.
And it's usually the most inopportune time.
Yes. They also went over briefly the Hail Mary, God is with thee, and I was thinking what you used to tell me, Hail Mary, full of grapes, the Lord is a tree.
Yes.
Forgive us, all you Catholics out there, but that's...
My grandmother and I used to laugh about that. She was very Catholic, so...
But my point being, it was nice to go down and perform live for some people, and, you know, at least have that, because really, you know, 2020 has been tough for performers.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened, and this is what we wanted to talk about, is, you know, kind of reflecting on 2020, since this is going to be our last episode this year and of our season of Soar and Pair. We thought, why don't we reflect on 2020? And you came up with a cool topic saying hindsight is 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, right?
So we're going to look behind us for a minute, at least in our own way, and give you our, you know, take on, you know, how 2020 affected us and how we deal with, because most of us have experienced all different kinds of losses.
Right.
You know, not only obviously people dying from COVID, but there's financial loss, there's the loss of going out to venues, kind of the loss of freedom, the loss of money. A lot of people, you know, been so many losses. How do we deal with that?
So regardless of how 2020 affected you, really it's, you know, the shock and the grief or the fear, all of those things, we're all affected by that. And this is really just a gentle reminder to allow this, try not to hang on to that, because what happens is we if we don't allow these emotions to move through us, then it gets stuck. And I heard someone say earlier that it's getting stuck underneath the heart chakra. And it just kind of gets lodged in there, kind of right here, you know, and we're not allowing it to release. And so we just keep replaying it. And now's a good time for us to consider, this is the time to reflect on what we've experienced as a whole and individually, and what we want to let go, so that we don't carry this forward into the next year and keep repeating these things. If we don't allow it to move through our body, then we will just kind of get, you know, like that record that keeps skipping.
So,
we'll keep replaying it.
So the question is, how do you, you know, that's a very great description, but I think...
how do you release? Right.
How do you break that cycle? Because I think a lot of us are used to the merry-go-round of, you know, here, almost the Groundhog Day of, here it is again, or the fear that will bring it back to us again and again. Because,
well, and it's a great thing to hear this, but then, you know, how, right? Yeah, yes. Exactly. So one thing I do is, what works for me is, because the same thing, I've, you know, heard things over the years of, you know, oh, just forgive or just do this or that. Then I'm like, okay, that's great on paper, but how do I do that? And so what I finally found works for me is I rise above myself, and I see myself as in actors in a play or a movie, and excuse me, and I'll just kind of watch it play out, and that allows me to kind of, you know, say, oh man, she screwed up there, or good job, you know, way to go, she got it on that one. And it's easier to disconnect if I'm looking from above and just watching it play out.
So observing without judgment.
Without attachment or judgment, exactly. And, you know, sending love to myself and everybody involved, or just completely detaching and watching it play out and going, okay, what can I learn from this, or what can I let go of?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
It does. I think a lot of people would probably wonder how you can step back from yourself and observe yourself, and I think that takes a little bit of practice.
It does.
Because I think what happens is we all get so absorbed in our own story, if I can put it that way.
Right.
So we're all up on the stage. We're in the center of our stage, right? Because we are starring in the play of our life.
Right.
So we're, you know, the spotlight is on us. People are coming and going. We're driving to work. We're dealing with, you know, challenges and problems, and, you know, people at the grocery store, or family or friends or people on social media. So it's happening, it's in our face. So how do you get from the center of the stage, so to speak, out into the audience to sit down and look back at that actor, at that
That's
star?
what I mean by rising above the situation. I'm watching myself, but I'm detached. Can you think of a better way to describe that?
No, I think that's really good. And I agree with you. I think I'm just trying to put it in a few different ways so that that people can wrap their. And I think the way, maybe to take it a step further. So how do we detach? How do we dislodge from, you know, being on the stage? And I think that's where we come. You know, we could spend hours and hours on this, but that's where, if you're someone who likes to pray, or you're someone who meditates, or somebody who takes a moment. That's why, you know, deep breathing is not only good for the body, but it's also good, and we've talked about the breath before. So a lot of times putting space between you and the frenetic thinking that you have about whatever you're stressing about is so key. And Eckhart Tolle is a really great teacher. I like his stuff, The Power of Now. And he talks about, you know, creating space between you and, you know, he says the biggest problem we have is overthinking, of, chronic thinking. We think and think and think and think till we don't think anymore. And
that's where healing occurs, is between the selves, right?
Right. Just like you say. So it's stepping back from the thinking and going to a place of no thought. So it's just another way of saying exactly what you were saying, is being able to step back and go, okay.
Yeah, each person's going to experience it a little different. Play with it until you find what works for you, for sure. This is just what works for me, is, to rise above and see myself as in a play. But, like Jim said, with the inspiration through the breath, just whatever works for you, just keep playing with it until you find what works, to where you can separate and allow those things to just move through, is really the key.
And there's no one way to do it.
No.
It's as different as everybody. So,
sitting against a tree.
Right. Connecting with nature. Some people, it's reading their holy book, the Bible, the Quran, whatever it may be. Whatever feeds that part where you feel you're connecting with your higher power, and then stepping back. And I think the most important thing is looking at whatever happened to you, or whatever. Let's just say you made some obvious mistakes. I think we've all made mistakes, especially this last year. It's been a rough year.
Yeah.
But to step back and look and go, it's okay. What can I learn from this? I can't change whatever happened, but what can I learn from it? And I think that's something you do very well. You're never expecting perfection out of yourself, and thank goodness out of me. But it's always like, what can we learn from this? Or how can we, get past the heat of the moment, the emotion, and what can we learn from it?
Right. Because, everything, I think, is a teaching moment to ourselves and each other. All of us. If you're still living, you're still learning and evolving and changing. And so be gentle. Be gentle with yourself and laugh whenever you can.
Just like she did in the middle of my beautiful Christmas story.
I'm so sorry about that.
It's just what happens between us.
It does.
We do a lot of laughing, and sometimes, not all joking aside, but joking to me is kind of that secret weapon, if I could use that term.
Yeah.
It's a secret weapon to start laughing at yourself or the situation, not because you're being disrespectful, but it's like, this is so ridiculous that response sometimes, I think, does exactly what we're talking about. It takes you out of the seriousness of the moment, and you start laughing at yourself or what you're upset about.
It breaks you out of your seriousness, out of, why so serious, everything. Yeah. Even that's growing up. I think I've told you guys before, my grandfather used to get me laughing in church, and he would get me in trouble a lot. But it was the same thing. And, those are the times that I think I actually connected more, was the times I was having fun and relaxing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think laughter and that kind of energy that comes from that is a really good way to, laugh at ourselves. Don't take everything so serious, and, what can we learn from? So speaking of what we can learn, so let's soar and pair look back at 2020, and I will ask you the question first, and then...
He flipped the script.
Well, that's what you get for laughing at me.
I know, right?
At my beautiful story of Oh Holy Night. It was more like, oh, holy crap.
I like that.
So Sandy, what have you learned from 2020, and what do you want to create in 2021?
So I was thinking about this, and I've learned a lot through 2020. But
what a great husband she has.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Of course. Goes without saying.
All right.
Yeah. One of the big things, I think, the big takeaways for me for 2020 is forgiveness. I kind of alluded to this earlier, is specifically with certain family members, people would tell me, well, you just need to forgive. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. How? How do you do this? It wasn't until I realized that forgiving myself and the people involved was what released me from the bond of that cycle, you know, just not a good cycle. And so I think forgiving myself, forgiving everyone involved is just a very good thing, and it's something I've really embraced this year on different levels.
Well, that's a really hard one to follow.
Yeah, well, it's been a big one, and you know that.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been a big one for me, and I feel like I finally, and part of, you know, rising above is how I did that. Moving into 2021, I am looking toward creating. You know, it's about creating what we want to see. Instead of what we, you know, repeating what we don't. And so moving into 2021, I am looking for really creating my new business, creating a new way of being, and really building those intuitive gifts more and more and growing in that way. I'm super excited.
Well, that's awesome. You could just mic drop right now. But as you said with the script, it's now you ask me, right?
Yep, your turn.
So what did I learn in 2020? Oh my God.
OMG.
As all of you know, I started out day one of 2020 pretty rough with a serious broken ankle. That was even before COVID really, you know, and by the time I got through the ankle, COVID came to be. But this year has been, I think for a lot of us, it's busted me out of my own comfort zone.
Yes.
And I really think a lot of us have been taken out of our routines, and that's just what I needed. Because I'm a very routine-oriented, I think a lot of us are very routine-oriented creatures.
Yes.
And it, you know, I've done the same job for over 30 years, you know, my piano tuning, and so I just sort of have this schedule, and things are the way they are, and this always happens at this time of year, and this, you know, it's kind of like your life is almost on automatic. And I think when COVID came and kind of just threw us all off, that gave me the opportunity, at least for myself, to hold on a second, you know, things are different. And it really caused me to look at myself and look at my life and go, you know, maybe I want to change a little bit and not just, you know, continue this treadmill, if you will. When I wrote the song about broken dreams, it was all about being on this treadmill and not really reaching out to those dreams. And so, you know, you and I started this podcast, we started this YouTube channel to do something out of our own comfort zones.
Right.
And at times it's been, you know, challenging. I mean, we're at episode 37. You know, we've done everything we set out to do with this. And, you know, we may not have millions of viewers yet.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
But I am grateful for the fact that you and I stuck with it and did something that isn't comfortable. And for me, I want to keep busting my own comfort zones. In 2021,
I love it.
Like you said, creating. So continue to create, to find new grooves and not just be stuck in the same old patterns.
Yes.
To me, it's very it's uncomfortable on one level, but on another level, it's almost like starting over. So, you know, that's what I'm looking to do in 2021, and you know, taking my music out there more, even if there's not live performances. How else can you know, what can I do with my music to help your business, and how we can, because it's all about, I think you and I, it's all about taking the gifts that we've been given and serving other people, because I really feel like when you get outside of your own head and get outside of yourself and serve other people, whatever that is, that's when you find that moment of balance and happiness.
That connection. Right. And you know, that's a good point, is, you know, creating whatever that looks like to you, to each person, allow that to be what it is. Somebody today that we were watching said, you know, if your job is to raise a child, then that's your creation. And that's huge. You know, there's no better creation than molding a person and, you know, helping them to become a full functional person.
Yeah, so, you don't have to be on stage and famous and affect millions. You know, if you're helping one person or 1,000 people, you're making a difference in the world, and you're doing your part to make this world a better place. Right.
Love it. Awesome.
So one more thing we wanted to talk about, because New Year's Eve is coming up. It's kind of a tradition that Sandy and I have done every year we've been together. And we have probably referred to it before, but we wanted to bring it up and just describe it briefly so that you could do your own version of this if you choose, but it's called a burn and release on New Year's Eve. And it's important to do that on New Year's Eve, the last day of the year, so that then the first day of the year you can start anew. But you want to describe a little bit of the burn and release?
Yeah, so what we do is we'll write down things that we want to release or let go of from this past year. And we do that on one piece of paper, and then the things that we want to create or bring in, we do on a different piece of paper. So first thing is, with the things you want to release, you write all those down. It can be as long or short as you like. And then when you're done with that, then you take it outside and burn it. And the release part of it is, as it goes up in smoke, it's going up to the ethers. It's, you know, it's like your prayers are being taken to heaven. You're just releasing them to heaven, right?
Beautiful, yes.
And then with the intentions
for this coming year, yeah, so it's almost like you're letting go of, you know, everything from this past year. And so once you write your intentions, then you also burn and release your intentions for the next year up to the sky, up to the ethers.
And some people will seal them in an envelope to be read by yourself at a later date. I personally like to release it so that I'm not hanging on to things, because it's almost like this or something better. You know, you don't want to box yourself into only this, you know. So I like to release it, like Jim said, so that it's open to possibilities.
Right, and the burning part doesn't mean you're burning up the goals for next year. Oh my gosh, you don't care. It's the idea.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very
so
opposite.
Even though it's the same act, you're allowing one, because it's about learning from the past and creating a better future. You can't just say, oh, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't wait till this year's over. I just can't wait to get to the next year. But hold on a second. I think the whole point of this is hindsight is 2020. What can we look back on
and
learn from without judging or beating self-judgment, beating ourselves up, so that we can make this next year better. And honestly, all of us, it's been a tough year, but we've all grown.
Yes.
In one way or the other.
And exactly. And, you know, trying to look back on the things from this year that have been good. There has been a lot of growth. And it hasn't come without some blood, sweat, and tears from most of us. So honor that and, you know, allow yourself that space to just grow from it and not carry it forward. right?
So
Let it move through.
So whether you do exactly what we're talking about or your own version, there's no right or wrong. Like, oh my gosh, you did it on January 1st. You know, I mean, the whole idea is, you know, have that opportunity before you start drinking. We should do that before,
Please,
you know,
yes.
not after so many beers or shots of Patron or whatever we're going to have. So that way you're symbolically almost thanking the year for what it brought to you, and then blessing the year coming up that you know that it's going to bring, and putting your own energy, your own intentions into that. And I think by releasing them to the sky, we're not so stuck into the details. We just know, you know,
right,
where we've come and where we're going.
And that's something I really wanted to stress, is not getting stuck in the details, because then you can box yourself in and that becomes a different kind of holding on. So, yeah. Yeah,
and setting goals is great, and we're certainly not saying to not do that. But I think in general, just allowing, you know, yourself to, you know, what do you want to, you know, taking that moment to reflect and then to look forward has been helpful for us, I think.
I agree.
I just hope that the morning after we do this, I don't break another ankle, because that's literally what happened. We did it. But yeah. All joking aside, that was, as hard as that was, it really caused me to slow down, like I talked about before, and not be stuck in the routine and get out of my comfort zone. So as hard as that was to get through it, and thank goodness my ankle is pretty much 100% and I'm good, pain-free and walking normal, that opportunity, of course I didn't ask for it, but it came through and I was able to learn from it. As hard as it was. Yeah. Just like, you know, you have learned from the jaw surgery that you just experienced. And,
yeah.
You know, so it's always, you know, it's taking, because life is going to throw good things at you, and life is going to throw some curveballs that hurt. Some physically, some emotionally, mentally. And
of course.
It's how you deal with both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, none of us get out of life unscathed, right?
That's for sure. So
what's our quote?
Our quote is, drop the last year into the silent limbo of the past. Let it go. It wasn't perfect, and thank God it can go. That's especially for 2020.
Yeah, that's how perfect is that, right?
By Brooks Atkinson.
Yeah.
So yes, you know, it's going to be a great upcoming year, and you know, it's wonderful. But I did want to end our last episode of the year and of this season with the Sandyism. What have you got? There's still so many to choose from. This one I like because I think it's unique to you, and it very much has to do with your nursing. So whenever you're describing something and you're like from top to bottom, instead of that you say from stem to sternum.
Yeah, it's a very nursey thing to say.
From stem to sternum.
Yeah.
And people are like, what? Like top to bottom, from stem to sternum.
Yep.
How are you feeling? Pretty good from stem to sternum. So there will be more Sandyisms in the season to come.
Well, I hope all of you have a great Christmas and a great New Year. And we appreciate you all.
We really do. And again, we want to remind you to subscribe to Soar and Pair. Tell your friends about us. We've got 36 other episodes for them to watch or to listen to. We appreciate our podcasters on iTunes and Google and Amazon and Stitcher and Podchaser and all those great platforms. You can see our faces, hear our voices, and we will be back in early January to start another season. And we're excited to see what 2021 brings for Soar and Pair.
Yes, and we will see you soon. Have a great holiday season. Be safe, everybody. Take care.
Take care.